Hi,
Wait,
good
still have
morning.
to got it. Just a
Yeah.
second.
This is my
The
reformation.
Reformation. I need two. I need one for
Okay.
Rabbi Green.
Hi, Malka. It's working.
Great, super. All right.
I
So
need
I'm
to
giving
take one
out.
for Rita.
Okay.
Luckily, and then this one,
Yeah, take that. Sorry. Okay, we're going to start today. This, I think you should have gotten it from last week. It's called The Jews of 16th Century Italy. We're going to start with that. And I don't know if any of you have this map or not. I have to have Joel do it and then forward it to you, but it's a map of Italy so you can see where the things are. And then the next one's going to be Life in the Ghetto. And if there's time, we'll do the Reformation. I'm not sure if I'll quite get to that.
Anything new for today?
All right.
Oh, she got a whole set.
All right, it's all right. Does anybody else still need?
I need the map.
Okay,
Give
sorry,
her-
just give me a sec to
give her
get
two.
everything
Give her
organized
two.
here. This
Give
is
me another one.
another set.
Yeah.
All right, just a minute. Wait, how did that end up all by itself there?
I have to get a ride in your car one day.
All right,
Margaret, can you hear me?
what's this?
So I took, so I'm giving back, but I didn't take a whole set. You gave me now a whole.
You have a whole set. Okay, so I'm giving you now a whole set.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Does anybody else still need sheets here? Those who are present in person? Okay, we got some people over here. Okay. Okay, guys, if I can have your attention. So we're going to start today with the Jews of 16th century Italy. Is there anybody who does not have these sheets? Okay, this is what we're doing today. I do have extra copies. Are you all with me? Okay, this was given out last week, so hopefully you do have it. Okay, and again, the Jews of 16th century Italy. But if you want, I have extra copies. Just let me know.
oh, Jews of 16th century.
You have that? Okay. All right. Excellent. And then for anybody who does not have a map of Italy, all right, or if those of you are home, if you want temporarily to look at an atlas, or I'll explain where those different towns are as we go through. And then I will, you have to understand, this is a very complicated process. When I do it at home, I don't have a printer with my computer. So I have to give it to my husband. And then he has to run it off.
They will do it for you.
No, I want to give it to the people who are online. I have to send it to them. Whatever, I'll send it to you so you'll have it, okay? And then I have to see, I should have one on Germany. So when I do Martin Luther, you'll have that one as well. But that, I don't know if I can even get to it today. So don't worry about that. Okay, those of you who are present. So you need to have in front of you the Jews of 16th century Italy, right? We did last week the Renaissance, okay, which I told you was primarily in Italy, although some of the ideas and concepts, will spread through parts of Europe. And then I also have a map of the Jews of Italy, so you can see exactly where everything is. And I've started working at home already on then the Rabbanim, those early Achronim who lived in Italy in the 16th century, but we'll do that next time. Some of them will be mentioned here, right, in this packet, the Jews of 16th century Italy, but to give you more information about them, next week. Okay, so you're all with me? So you can want to follow along, all right? I always look at several sources.
The Renaissance you're doing
No, I did that last week. The Jews of 16th century Italy. If you don't have it, I have an extra copy. All right. So don't be concerned about that. Okay. You need, what do you need a copy of? Yeah, that's it. That you have that. Do you want a map?
I have the rest. I don't have this. I just.
Oh, you don't have that. Okay. Sorry, guys. Okay. Right. Hopefully we're all organized at this point. Okay. So again, we learned a bit about how the impact that the Renaissance had, certainly on art, architecture, looking back at the classics, which would have included Greek and Latin, but also this great interest now also in the Hebrew language. And many, this would be more among the the priests, those of the members of the Catholic Church, and they want to look back at the original, language in which the Bible would have been written, because they're trying to go back to a classical age. And we'll see, how this will then later have impact even on the Reformation. Okay, but we're not quite there yet. Okay, so I'm going to start reading and explain as I go along. Okay, with the advent of the era of the Achronim, especially these early Achronim, that 16th and 17th century. But first, I'm sort of want to concentrate on just the 16th century. There will be some also from the 17th century. It's actually more of them come from the 16th century, maybe because the tide changes and things aren't so great anymore. So there are not as many Rabbanim from the 17th century. We're talking about Italy and Germany, all right? Those are the two countries we're going to be talking about, focusing on at this point, because then there will be a trend going to the east. And so there'll be more greater Rabbanim coming, obviously, out of Poland. Okay. The Jewish community of Italy was greatly strengthened in numbers. I'm going to say, well, how, where did these new people? The first, I want to explain, you might on occasion come across a term referring to Romaniot Jews. These are not necessarily Jews from Italy, although some of them did end up living in Italy. They are really the Jews from the Byzantine Empire, the original name. So we're talking anytime after the year the 300s. And they lived mostly, you'll make you think of Gypsies, but it's not, they're Jews. And they lived primarily in Greece, okay? But they're called Romaniot because it was the Eastern Roman Empire, all right? And they spoke Greek. That was their main language. Some of them did then emigrate to the various islands around Greece and Italy, and some also do come to live in Italy. They also go and live in the Balkans. So those are the so to speak, like the original Jews, in that part of the world. But again, they are Greek speaking Jews. Again, or parts of Italy, and larger influx of Jews from Spain and Portugal once those edicts of expulsion all took effect. Okay. The southward migration of German Jews and their settlement of the northern provinces had already begun in the 15th century. So we're talking about in the 1400s, things become very difficult for Jews living in Germany. They're always caught in the middle. One principality expels them, they go to live in another principality, back and forth. Really, their lives were very, very troubled. These German Jews, again, those who come to live in northern Italy, formed their own congregations in many places, and gradually there evolved a unique Italian Nusach, Ashkenaz. And I believe I told you this, I was in Rome a number of years ago with my son Shalom, and like in one building are like at least 4 little shuls, each with their own unique nusach that they're davening. This is even Chabad is very recent, so we can't. Don't even think about that at this point in time. They're depending where they came from, either in Germany or in Spain. They each had their own way, unique way of davening. Okay. So, but think, and when you think of Italy, so just think there is a Nusach Ashkenaz in Italy also. Following 1492 and the expulsion of Jews from Spain, and later the influx of Portuguese Jews, the Sephardim, right, that they're all called Sephardim, became a dominant force throughout Italy. And they're going to make a tremendous impact and change. So they're going to now intermingle with those, let's say, those original Jews who are living in Italy already from the time period, of the Tanaim and the Amoraim, Jews were living there prior to the destruction of the second Beit HaMikdash, and then also many of them were brought initially as slaves, and then there's Pidyon Shavuyim, and they get their freedom. So that those original Jews. They're also Jews who will ultimately leave Babylonia, starting in the 900s, 1000s. They're going to come to live. And then I told you there are these Romaniot Jews, and now we're getting German Jews from the north and Sephardic Jews who are going to settle initially in the southern part of Italy and central Italy.
The question is, why didn't the Germans just stay in Germany?
I just told you the times were terrible there. They had a lot of persecutions, and they were caught up in different wars, and there were heresies, the Hussites in particular. But of course, they always, fall upon the Jews and attack us, regardless. Right. Well, while they're attacking a particular Christian heresy, but let's first go after those Jews who for sure are like the chief heretics, right? Okay. I talked about this Sephardic. All right, the Sephardic customs and prayer, which is called Nusach Sfarad, all right, came to be practiced in Italy alongside the old Italian. Remember, that's that Romaniot, right, that I mentioned to you, and also their German rites. The influx of a significant number of conversos. So this is going to take place after 1492, so into the 1500s, 1600s, throughout the 16th century, also strengthened the already growing Sephardic community. So you see there's a real, like a melting pot going on in Italy as far as the Jews who come to live there. They're coming from all different areas and regions, and it's over centuries. If you paid attention, the German Jews settle in the northern part of Italy. The Romaniot Jews, they're already there. And then the Sephardim, when they are coming in, those who leave after 1492, or those who will eventually, make their way out of Portugal after 1497. So they're living mostly either in southern Italy or central Italy. Okay. As if you look at the map, all right. Oh, this map, it's hard to see on this. I have another map, but just know Sicily and Sardinia, they're off of the southwestern coast of Italy. All right. So again, as for the islands of Sicily and Sardinia, they were Spanish possessions during the 15th century. We're talking about in the 1400s, they were owned by Spain. So the edict of expulsion in 1492 applied to the Jewish populations who lived there as well. I mean, they're owned by Spain. If we are getting rid of all of our Jews, in the Iberian Peninsula, what any other possessions that we have, we're also going to get rid of them. Later, the Duchy of Naples, all right, and Naples, that's also southwestern Italy. In southern Italy was acquired by the Spanish crown, and the Jews were expelled from there too by Emperor Charles V between the years 1510 and 1541. And this is when I say the emperor, it's the Holy Roman Emperor. So he's ruling over really vast territories, and some of them include Spain. The focus of Jewish life was now confined to central and northern Italy. So you see how they're going to be expelled from obviously Sicily and Sardinia, but also from all that whole southern Italian area is going to be free of Jews. I mean, maybe some conversos ended up settling there, but they're still living then as conversos. Those who want to live freely, openly as Jews, they're going to be living in central Italy. What's in central Italy? You look at the map, it's the Papal States. It's so ironic, right? I mean, the Inquisition was initially, a promulgation of the Catholic Church, under the auspices of the Pope, but it depended on a particular Pope, as we'll soon learn, but very often they actually were protected more living in the Papal States than they were in other parts of either Italy or other parts of Europe.
What's the Kingdom of Naples?
Okay. That's what we had just talked about, because it's under Spanish rule at this time. I mean, it's going to change. Eventually it comes under French rule, but now it's under Spanish rule. Okay. And it's called the Duchy of Naples. Okay. So now I'm up to the third paragraph, right on that first page. Okay, the new spirit of the Renaissance now began to invade the Jewish world of Italy. And in general, I told you the Renaissance is really Italy. Okay. Again, some of the influences will go to other countries, but it's really you think of those great, magnificent works of art, and sculpture. They are from Renaissance Italy. All right. They are not from any other countries. The Jews were now remember I told you how they great interest in the classical languages, right? Which of course primarily would be Greek and Latin, but they also then I told you have a great interest in studying the Hebrew language, again, just because these are all Christian people and they want to study the original source of the Bible, which of course was written in Hebrew. Okay, so the Jews themselves were very active in translating these ancient works of Israel, as well as those of Greece and Rome. The fields of scientific discovery and human history also gained increased interest. So we're talking about, more of an interest in some, obviously more rudimentary, but fields of science, and also the beginning of the writings of history. Okay. Jews became prominent in these areas as both patrons and participants. I'll mention this one man. His name is Abraham Avraham Farisol. Now, this is still 15th century. He lived initially in Mantua, and then he moved to Ferrara, northern Italy. And they served at the court of Lorenzo de' Medici. And the Medicis are Florence. All right, that's also northern Italy. Okay, not all the way to the very north. I mean, to where the Alps are, but it's definitely the more northerly part of Italy. He wrote a book on geography where he described the divisions of the world and the peoples who inhabited them. In fact, he was the first Hebrew writer to describe in detail the newly discovered America. I found that quite fascinating. Here's another individual's name is Yosef HaKohen. Actually, I looked his dates up. He lived because my first source didn't list it. So he lived from 1496 to 1578. 1492. You're right that the dates here don't make any sense. So whoever I got this info makes no sense. I have to look it up. I don't know. No, you're right. It would not make any sense. Let's go on to the next gentleman. Okay, I'll look further up about Avraham Farisol. Okay, Yosef HaKohen also was fascinated with the Great Conflict. Again, this is a person interested in the writing of history. And fascinated with the conflict between Christianity and Islam. The Turks were constantly expanding, extending their sway over southeastern Europe. So Cohen wrote a history of France, representing Christianity, and a history of the Ottoman Turks. And he also wrote a history of the tribulation, the troubles of the Jews, called Emek HaBacha, the Veil of Weeping, and that came out in 1558. Right, here's another person who writes about history. That was the very bottom of page 1. All right. Apparently, by the way, this Yosef HaKohen, so I had given you his dates, 1496, 1578. Again, he wrote books on history. Apparently he was a physician and also philologist, studied languages. He comes from Genoa. Okay. Next individual. So on page 2, all right, and we're talking about Shlomo ibn Varga. Okay. Together with successive members of his family, Shlomo ibn Varga, who was born in 1450. We don't always have the exact dates of some of these people. He wrote a book called Shevet Yehuda, the Rod of Yehuda, an account of all the persecutions which the Jews had suffered during the previous centuries. But he's trying to understand not just the list of these persecutions. He's trying to understand, well, how and why did these persecutions occur? This book was an attempt to indicate that sometimes through their own fault and at other times through the fault of others, the Jewish people had undergone many persecutions, but had with the aid of God survived them. So now these are the points where he's criticizing the Jews, and perhaps if these reasons led to their persecution. He called attention to pride, social climbing, and neglect of Jewish life. But of course, he also looks at it from the perspective of the outside forces, but also to the ill will and bigotry which surrounded the Jewish people. Are we to blame for anti-Semitism? No. But something to think about, because look over here, we're talking about in the late 1400s, early 1500s, and he's already wrestling with this issue, right?
Oh, there was
Um,
much before that in the 13th century.
No, but I'm saying he's trying to understand the reasons for this anti-Semitism. Okay, and are we at all to blame for any of actions that we might have done that fostered this, or is this strictly based on bigotry of others? I'm just telling you, I just found it fascinating that somebody hundreds and hundreds of years ago was already, debating in his own mind, even, and he puts it to writing about, why is this Jewish hatred in the world?
Yeah, with the
Okay.
interpretation.
Yeah,
I
right.
still don't understand that.
Right, we're still wrestling with that issue, and you can still listen to 1,000,001 lectures, and people have different opinions about it. Here's another individual. I will actually, when I talk about the Achronim, I will mention this individual. Okay, his name is Azariah de Rossi. He's a scholar of the 16th century, right? 1511, 1578. He was a foremost physician. Interesting, you see so many of them went into the field of medicine initially. That's how they earned a living. But then, they were so interested in learning, so they also wrote other types of books. He was also a scientist. He was born in Mantua, and he later moved to Ferrara. But in between, he also moved, from one town to another, either up for opportunity or maybe times were difficult, and that's why he goes from one town. You looked it up?
He lived 5 years.
No, that's what got me.
Right. It's all right. I'll look into that and give you the.
It's 1526.
Oh, so which make more sense. All right. Yeah, that would definitely make more sense. So whoever thing I got this information from obviously had the wrong dates. Okay, I'll look it up. I often do check, but of course I thought that one was so authoritative, I didn't bother looking up. But you're right, it makes no sense for when I'm giving you the dates and I'm telling you you wrote about America. Right, it doesn't follow suit. Okay, so let's learn a little bit more about this Azariah de Rossi. He was proficient in Hebrew, Latin, and Greek, and influenced by the Renaissance spirit surrounding him. He also wrote a book on Jewish history. So interesting, because when you talk about Jewish historians, you think more of this starts in the 19th century and into the 20th century. But look here, this is Italy, right, in the 16th century, and some of them are already starting to write books on Jewish history. He wrote, the book that he wrote, it's called Maor Einaya, Light of the Eyes. In 1570, I thought this was so interesting. He lived through a terrible earthquake in this town. I'd never heard of it before, Sabioneta. And he wrote an account of it, and he called it Kol Elokim, right? So I thought that's interesting, like the voice of God. Right? All right. Unfortunately, that always is the case, the spirit of skepticism and anti-clericalism, that means anti-church, which led to undermining the rule of the church, also pervaded the Jewish world. I think this was Rabbi Wein's writing this. Okay. Rabbinic authority was openly challenged. Ancient customs of Israel were threatened, and even the texts of the Bible, Mishnah, and Talmud were questioned as to their accuracy, even their holiness. I'm not sure where he gets his information from, but I guess there is a beginning of questioning even rabbinic authorities and their writings. Are they true? Are they accurate? Or, etc. The Jews felt that in many ways the Renaissance would benefit them, both politically and socially. So they thought, oh, wow, seems to be a more open society that's developing. In general, look at this great interest, right, in Jewish thought, right, Hebrew language. And so maybe our lives are going to be better as a result. Weakening of the power of the church, the profligacy and the worldliness of the Renaissance popes. I mean, dependent on the particular pope, but they're the ones who fostered this art, the architecture, right? They, that's where do you think some of those magnificent cathedrals come? They're coming from this time period. The bitter fancy word, warfare between the Italian city-states all seem to indicate opportunity for improvement of the Jewish situation in Italy. In other words, Italy is divided at this point into many, many different states, all right? Papal states right in the middle, but all the other ones are also ruled by their own particular, duke or prince. And they also fought, with one another. Just keep in mind, Italy and Germany do not become unified until the 19th century, okay? In Germany, that's due to Bismarck, right? And in Italy, it's called the Risorgimento, the unification of all of Italy. But again, that's not till the 19th century. So you can understand each one wars with the other because they're all divided up. When you think about Germany, there is this Holy Roman Emperor, but he really only ruled over his portion, whatever he owned there actually. And, but all the various other Saxony, Bavaria, they're all fighting with one another, and, they're also fighting against the emperor. So it was, a very confusing time period. But, the Jews, maybe with this, the growth of a more open thought, more of an interest, in the peoples of the past, so that maybe their lot would improve. All right. But such hopes ultimately proved to be unfounded. The enemies of the church were no friendlier, and many times they were even more inimical and harmful to the Jews than the church itself. All right. So I think this is hinting already to the Reformation, but we'll do that as a separate unit. The Christian Hebraists loved Hebrew, but not the Hebrews. I love that. That's a great way to describe it. Okay, page 3. Ancient prejudices against the Jews still prevail. I mean, can't get rid of this hatred of the Jews. It's just like from time immemorial. That's the title of the book. Okay. Jewish bankers, brokers, merchants, and physicians were forced out of their fields by the growing Christian, non-clerical, middle class, and intelligentsia. It's like, we just seem to be hated by everybody, and they can't tolerate us. Renaissance men and leaders no longer needed Jews to make their society prosper and grow. Remember, originally we talked about how the Jews played such an important role in trade and commerce, bringing in the riches from the East, but now Christians are taking over those positions. So the Jews are going to be relegated to lower and lower position in the economic scheme of life, right? They felt free to discard the Jews who for centuries had helped build the empires of Florence, Venice, Rome, and Verona. Jews were expelled from Perugia in 1485, Vicenza in 1486, Parma in 1488, Lucca and Milan in 1489, and Tuscany, including Florence, in 1489. It's just relentless. But you can understand, and this would include Germany as well, that you might be expelled, right? They don't want the Jews within their midst, from one area, but you could then pick up, I can imagine what the upheaval was like for these Jews, but then you could pick yourselves up, your families, your possessions, and move to a neighboring principality. When things then might perhaps have gotten better, or where you're currently living, they also now decide they want to expel you, then you move to another place or back to your original, area, and whatever. Very, very, you could understand then why ultimately the Jews will move eastward to ultimately, first will be Bohemia, Moravia, the Czechoslovakia, and then onward to Poland. All right.
But the reason that they didn't need them anymore as merchants and all that doesn't mean they had to expel them.
But that
was the hatred.
It's right. Exactly. It doesn't matter what we say or do or act or behave. It's just like that. It's this endemic hatred of the Jew. Yes.
If the Christian and even the Muslim, but mainly the Christian, if they used our knowledge and our Torah and our scholars and our brain for business, they should have had respect.
On the other hand, we refuse to become Christians.
Instead, they are
right.
stepping on us,
But
they're taking away the knowledge and this usually you respect a knowledgeable.
I
person.
know, but you have to understand, we are the only people in Europe who refuse to accept Christianity.
But that's a religion.
But that's,
not-
everybody there was religious.
but they- but
Everybody
they
was
themselves
Christian.
taking their Christianity from the Jewish.
It doesn't
Bible,
matter.
the New-
It doesn't, ultimately, deep down, right, we are different, we are the other, and as a result, people don't want us to live among them, unfortunately. Okay, where am I up to? Right, had done the whole, oh, yes, this makes sense. Okay, now we're going to talk about the ghetto, all right? And how did that come into being? Now, as Jews, do we not live in our own ghettos to this very day? But this is our choice. We want to live, especially if you're an observant Jew, you have to be able to walk to the shul on Shabbos, right? Our schools are there, the mikvahot are there. Very often, depending on the community, the cemeteries would not be too far from these. But that's choosing to do this. This is not going to be enforced that the Jew must live in a separate section of the town. Okay, so in 1516, the substitute for complete expulsion of the Jews from a community was invented in Venice. I mean, it becomes official, it's going to have a name. Okay, the entire Jewish community was to be forced to live in a tightly segregated and enclosed section of Venice known as the ghetto. I have never been to Venice, so I don't know what that looks like in that ghetto, but I have been to Rome and the area where the ghetto was. The term ghetto is based on the Italian word for iron foundry, ghetto, G-E-T-O, in whose district the ghetto was founded, all right? I mean, it's come, when you think of the word ghetto, we think, oh, an enclosed space where Jews, or you'll talk about the black ghetto, right? Like Harlem is referred to as that, where people are living in a tightly segregated area.
Usually it's walled in.
This one, right, this one was. What are you looking for?
The one that you're working on now.
Okay, just a
Because
minute.
bring by folder.
Ooh,
Yeah, I
bad.
don't have the
Okay.
map.
I know I have extras. This one. This is what I'm in the middle of.
Oh, okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Sorry, guys, over there. Those of you who are
Interruption,
listening
sorry.
in. Okay, here we
Sorry for the
are.
interruption.
Okay. So go back now to the ghetto and how it became established. It's based on the Italian word I told you for iron foundry. Living in the ghetto was compulsory. You had no choice. You could not live anyplace else if you were a Jew. This arrangement, innovation of the leading and most progressive Renaissance community in Europe. I mean, this was in those days like a worldly community, but they still don't want the Jews to live on top of them. Soon became the norm throughout Christian Europe. Jews were forced to accept this new arrangement of lifestyle and eventually became proud and protective of their isolation. On one hand, okay, why are you making us live in a separate area, which again becomes a walled area? But hey, this way we can freely, interact with one another. So that is a positive way to look at it. But the ghettos were also efficient in preventing Jews from meaningful self-defense. So if you're in a very tiny area of the city, even if it's surrounded by a wall and there are gates to it, the mobs can still break right through, right, and attack us. Okay, now I'm going to leave the ghetto. I will come back to it. I have a whole unit just on life in the ghetto, what it was like. But now we're going to talk about the spread of Hebrew printing presses. Very interesting. The introduction of the printing press in the second half of the 15th century soon began to revolutionize Jewish learning. I mean, you think today, like what Art Scroll did with translating so many works into English and how that has proliferated. So for here, just having, remember, up until this time period, and we talked about numerous works. I'm not talking about just the Torah or the Tanakh, but so many other works, have been produced and written, but everything was painstakingly written by hand. So how many copies could you make if you look at the Gemara? Oh my God. So it became a very valuable thing, and only maybe certain scholars or the wealthier class could actually own these forms. Now we have the printing press. All right. Okay, prior to this, I just explained that only a limited number of copies of a work could be made by hand. So obviously curtailed its circulation. And also this way knowledge was curtailed. Now, thousands of copies could be made at once and distributed throughout the Jewish world. It was the invention of movable type, that's what printing press refers to, guaranteed the survival and development of Torah scholarship amongst Jews wherever they might live. Look at this. In just the first 50 years of printing in 15th century Europe, tens of thousands of Jewish books were printed and disseminated. Now, of all places, Italy is going to become the center for these Jewish, for these Hebrew printing presses. Became the cradle of Jewish typography, and it retained a leading position in the field of Hebrew printing for many centuries. Even when we're talking, we remember about the Jews living in the Ottoman Empire, many of these works were then, obviously the handwritten works, would make their way to Italy. And in Italy, right, Venice in particular becomes an important center. They would then be printed there. My Zeta used to collect some of these old Sfarim, and I own, well, now Shalom owns it. I gave it to him to separate. Remember, the paper is very thick, the bindings are very thick, and they're large. They're very large works. So that for, let's say, for the Tanakh, he's got a separate thing on Torah, a separate thing on Nevi'im, and a separate, work on Ketuvim. I thought they were handwritten, but I took it to the University of Rochester, to the rare books department, and the woman said, no, it's paper and it's printed. So I found that very interesting. But these are things that date back like 500 years, really amazing. And inside, it tells you that it's printed in Venice, right? And it gives you the year. Some of them go back like to the 1500s. Okay. Where are we up to? Okay, I'll talk about Italy. The first printed editions of the Talmud, the Mishnah, Mikros, Gedolos, the Torah. Remember, the Shulchan Aruch is based on the Torah, dividing halacha into 4 major sections, and the Shulchan Aruch were produced there. This great availability of scholarly works made Italy a flourishing center of Jewish learning. Again, this is all taking place in this time period of the Renaissance. Many communities supported their own yeshivot, and among the rabbis of the town were some of the greatest Jewish scholars of that time. Now talk about some of the towns where they had printing presses. Padua, Calabria, Sansino. I'm not sure Sansino, a town, whatever. And Naples all had Jewish printing presses in operation by the end of the 15th century. Now, there actually was a family name, Sansino, but sometimes our last names are based on the towns where we come from. Israel Nathan Sansino and his son Joshua Solomon, Shlomo, obviously, Sansino were the first famous Jewish printers. But it's Gershom Sansino, who was Joshua's nephew, all right? He far outdid his elders, eventually producing over 100 Hebrew works by the year 1530. The Sansino Press, which we know it today. Oh, so there is a town. Okay. Okay. There were also non-Jewish, but look at this, let's see what's going to happen as a result. There were also non-Jewish printing presses that produced Hebrew and Torah books for the Jewish market. That was a money-making venture, so they decided to get into the business as well. All right. But this competition caused much dissension and turmoil in the Jewish world. The next paragraph will explain what very important controversy. Rabbinic bans proliferated, can you use a non-Jewish printing press to purchase your books of Jewish scholarship? Not. A much heated debate, both oral and written, ensued. Large investments of money in competitive printing presses sharpened the disputes. It always turns out bad for us. So now we'll come to this very interesting story. Okay. The most famous dispute between competing presses involved the noted rabbinic scholar, Rabbi Meir Katzenellenbogen. I will tell you more about him and the works that he wrote at a late time. He comes from Padua. He's called the Maram mi Padua. And his years are just there, 1482, 1565. Rabbi Meir attempted to publish his edition of the Rambam's Mishnah Torah in partnership with a well-known non-Jewish printer. Isn't it ironic that he would go to a non-Jewish printer?
Yeah.
I guess he gave him a better price, so he went there. Okay. Another powerful non-Jewish printer rushed his competing edition of the Mishnah Torah to an earlier press. I mean, it's like with earlier printing date, he was going to come out first with it, and distribution. Rabbi Meir obtained rabbinic injunctions forbidding Jews from publishing that new edition. Now, he's an extremely well-known Rav, so he had the power, to ensure that people would only buy, his non-Jewish printing press, that was coming out with the copy of the Mishnah Torah based on one. He must have owned, I guess, a handwritten text, perhaps. We know how he wants it to be publicized. The competing printer retaliated by denouncing Rabbi Meir's work to the Pope. Oy, you can imagine already. So now we have two competing non-Jewish printing presses, both wanting to come out with the Mishnah Torah, and now see what's the Pope going to do. All right, and they alleged it to contain material insulting to the church. Oy vey. Rabbi Meir's non-Jewish partner and publisher also responded in kind, complaining to the church about the contents of his competitors' Mishnah Torah edition. The Pope accommodated all parties to the dispute, and on August 12, 1553, declared that all editions of the Talmud, the Rambam's Mishnah Torah, and other books to be blasphemous per se. Never get good to turn to the non-Jewish world to do things for us. All right. On Rosh Hashanah, which was September 1553, thousands of Jewish books were burned in the Campo de Fiore in Rome. And I was at that square. I remember when I went there with Shalom, but I didn't know about this. And it's a thing. It's a very beautiful square. And that all these Jewish books were piled up.
By the Christians?
Yeah, the Christians the Jews are not burning them.
Well, it doesn't say.
But who do you think is doing it?
I
I said it's the Pope. The
Yeah,
Pope
but
gets involved.
What was the reason?
Because you're not listening to what I'm telling you here. They denounced these works as being anti-church. So this gave her a valid reason, right, in the Pope's estimation. Well, let's just burn them all. We're having this big fight between these printers about printing Jewish books. The heck with it. Let's gather them all, just burn them all. Okay. And again, it's because, this rumor was spread. Well, these works contain all this anti-church, anti-Christian, blasphemy. All right. And that's why they don't deserve to exist. Jewish book burning now spread throughout Renaissance Italy. Oh boy, everybody's getting in on the party now. This is a great thing. Let's just burn these books.
Was this the first Jewish book?
No, in the 1200s in Paris. No, not at all. The Jewish community recoiled in honor at the imposition of such medieval goes back to medieval kind of the 1200s Paris, right? There was Rabbi Yechiel de Paris was the Rav at the time, and all these 24 cartloads of Sforim. Those were all handwritten books, right? They were gathered up forcibly from the Jewish homes and burned in the main square in Paris. All right. Now it's happening again in Rome and other parts of Italy. And finally, the Jewish community says reaches an accommodation with the Italian church. It involved a strict discipline of self-censorship. So now they're doing, okay, don't touch our works. We will go through, all these things. Any mention whatsoever of Christianity, any negative comments, we'll make sure that they are removed from these Jewish works. And this will ensure, let me just turn my page, okay, that it contained no unfavorable reference to Christianity. And also, my Zeder I told you, he collected various books. So this one my brother took, all right, as the only son, actually got first dibs to my father's library. But there are various books. I don't even know what the Sefer was, but I remember my father showing it to me, that these were Jewish, and you could literally see there were certain words that are like burned out on the page because apparently, in the Christian or the church's opinion, there was something negative there that might have referred to, negatively to Christianity. So they're literally burned out. So you can't even read those words.
In the Aleinu prayer, there is obviously an example of that because there's in parentheses.
Right. I wonder if we did that ourselves, though. Yeah, but I think that we did that we made that decision. That's why I don't daven. I don't say those words. I'm talking about Aleinu, right? Those negative terms.
Well, that's
Yeah. But I think we ourselves decide. Well, here we said this was self-censorship, that the Jews themselves decided if they wouldn't print anything that would possibly, be construed as being
But
anti-Christian.
obviously that later was not changed. It's still the same.
Right. The Jews also promised no Jewish books would be printed unless they first obtained rabbinic approbation, called the Haskama. Do you ever get these books that people send you with Haskama? It's called an approbation, recommending a particular book. I never even heard of half these rabbis, but I once had somebody come around trying to push off some sefer to me and had my Zeta's name here. My Zeta had been gone for 20 years. That he was right. I had written on Haskam on this book that was just then appearing. In any case, so this is how that idea of a Rav writing a Haskama, recommending a particular new work that has come out, okay, and that they're attesting to the scholarly value of this particular work. And it also guaranteed that these books, right, these Sforim, were free of criticism of the church. All right. Unfortunately, the rise of the Reformation movement, that starts in 1517, we'll talk about that separately, at the start of the 16th century, also led to a Catholic counter-Reformation. So the church is not giving up. They don't know what other Christians are saying about them, and boy, they never liked the Jews in any case. That brought with it a wave of persecutions and anti-Jewish legislation by the papacy. They somehow accused, that the Protestants, had read certain Jewish works, and that's why they are then attacking the church in Rome, and so whatever. We're always blamed for everything. These enactments had the force of law throughout the Papal States, in particular, mostly the Papal States. It was a pretty large area of Italy, and they were soon copied in many other provinces. So in other words, we think of the Pope as being in Rome, in the Vatican, but he ruled over a vast area. Okay, and these are called the Papal States. Now, talk about how different popes reacted to the Jews in their midst. Various popes during the 16th century issued anti-Semitic decrees. In 1553, Pope Julius III, this must be for when I had already mentioned about it, so he was the Pope at the time, he ordered all copies of the Talmud be confiscated and burned. Unfortunately, the order was strictly and scrupulously enforced and caused tremendous damage to Jewish learning. So you can see this is going on for centuries. The Nazis didn't invent this. Paul IV, 1555 to 1559. These are not the dates of their lives, they're the dates that they were the popes. Right? Now ordered that all Jews should be contained in the ghetto. He also severely curtailed their economic activity. Maybe some Jews at this point, maybe not everybody was still in the ghetto. After this, it's going to be really strictly enforced. He also severely curtailed their economic activities, and the only business he allowed to them was the selling of rags, shmatas. I didn't think we got into the shmata business. It starts from here. A shmata, selling of rags. That's the only job that was allowed to us. We sold them, right. Papers made out of, can be made out of rags as well. Additionally, he ordered that 25, now this is a really terrible thing. I think I focused on it when we were talking about the Jews from Constantinople. He ordered that 25 conversos residing in Ancona, which is part of the Papal States, be burned at the stake. And this really happened. These 25 Jews lost their lives. Remember when I talked about Donna Gracia and then her nephew, Don Yosef? He actually tried to send ships to save the Jews of Ancona, but he himself was having economic problems, so he never ended up being able to send those ships to save them. Pius V, 1566, 1572, and Clement VIII, 1592 to 1605, additionally banished the Jews from the Papal States, except for the cities of Rome and Ancona. Why? The reason for these exceptions was that the papal treasury would have suffered too much from their total expulsion. They get us one way or the other, right? Okay. In spite of this oppressive climate in which they lived, Italian Jews did manage to flourish in the 16th and later in the 17th centuries, both economically and spiritually. I mean, they hung on, they made, they earned their livings in whatever way they could. They continued learning and writing Sfarim. The Jews in the northern part of Italy in particular were mostly spared from the wave of persecutions that the Jews in central Italy were relentlessly subjected to. Okay, so what we'll do next time, all right, because we've come now to the end of this unit, we will then, I'm going to talk to you just about the ghetto, what life was like in the ghetto, and then we'll go on to the Reformation, because the Reformation has an incredible impact on the Jews living in Germany, but it's going to spread because the Protestant Reformation spreads to other countries as well, so it's going to impact on the lives of the Jews in those various countries. Okay, and then boy, I'm going to read you some excerpts from Martin Luther's writings. They are really horrifying, but you could then understand. Bear in mind, Germany, right? You don't say in time period by the time we get to the 30s and the 40s, the northern part of Germany is Protestant, and the southern half of Germany is Catholic. Like Bavaria, it's Catholic. So we already have been learning this terrible anti-Semitism coming out of the Catholic Church from the Pope in Rome, but then we're going to learn about the ugly anti-Semitism that will also come out of the period of the Protestant Reformation. All right. So, but we'll do that next time. All right. Everybody be well. Good to see all you guys who are here. All right. Take care. I'm going to have
Thank you,
to.
Malka.
My pleasure. Be
Good
well,
job.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Everything.
My pleasure. Be well,
Okay.
everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Okay. I'm turning it off now. Okay.
Okay.